Rose had talipes in her feet, and when we finished that treatment, there was still kind of something not quite right. So we were referred to genetics, and that's how we got diagnosed. It's the cough, first of all, was the biggest symptom. And that we keep that at bay with prophylactic antibiotics. And then it was just general, we were concerned about Rose not being able to run was the biggest thing when she was little. And we thought that was down to her talipes initially, but after a few tests, it was AT. So straight away after our diagnosis, we were put into one of the clinics where we see everybody, and it was one of the first things we were approached on. Would we be interested in taking part in a drug trial? And initially we were like, gosh, that's a bit scary, but actually once we had all the information, we were like, let's give it a go.
What was it that kind of changed your mind? What did you...
I think lovely people explaining it to us, knowing all the information. Here in the hospital, all the different multidisciplinary team members specialise in AT. So we see neurology, immunology, dietitian, speech and language, respiratory, all those different people.
He developed a little shaking in the neck, and then he was sort of slowly deteriorating in terms of health. It was like when the kid started walking at the age of 1.5. So it was like he was a little wobbly. He was like so we just concerned. We thought of it's just like sort of a early sort of a development in terms of he's just going to get stable slowly. But when we see that he's not getting stable properly, we actually had some sort of a doctor's diagnostic, and he was diagnosed quite early by a GP. Maybe he had some information on the AT, and then he said this is what he feels like, and then he had some tests and all, and then finally he was diagnosed. We actually been referred by the GP to the Nottingham AT hospital, and then finally when the Queen's Hospital started this trial, they asked us to sort of volunteer for the trial, and then we actually opted in, and then this is how it started. The team is really good. They actually are taking care of good care of Muhammad Ayaan, and then he's happy coming in here. There's no problem, and it's over the weekend, so it's absolutely no problem for us to coming in, and then it's like sort of a drive out plus some sort of a medical help. It's perfectly all right. I definitely recommend for other parents to get into this. Yeah. So this is one of the benefits which I believe we got in living in this country, that the medical research is so advanced that this sort of trials are there, and then people get into that, and then they actually get some sort of a benefit. Medical is a very vast field, and then research is always there. When then some sort of a medicine is there and then research is required, I believe the people who actually are suffering, they should volunteer in it just to get some sort of a benefit out of it, and then present, if it is a successful medicine, it just sort of an example to other people, or other people who actually are suffering from the same sort of a disease. So you definitely need to volunteer.
So I think what we noticed first of all was that once Wyn had learned to walk, that he did kind of stabilise beyond kind of tottering and staggering, and he was about probably 2.5, and we kind of thought maybe it's time to get this checked out now. So that was when we initially started to look into things. And to begin with, they suspected that Wyn was hypermobile. We had an MRI scan, that was all clear, and they said that perhaps it was just a case of having some physio. But it just didn't quite sit right with us, and we felt perhaps it needed a little further investigation. So I did some research at home, and I actually came across the ATTeST website, which described a lot of the symptoms we were seeing in Wyn. So I requested a test from my GP, who said that she felt, although it was unlikely, that she was willing to put him forward for that test. And yes, and then he was diagnosed at about 2.5. We came to Nottingham once we had the diagnosis. We were put in touch with Nottingham. He came up for his first clinic there.
I was 6.
You were 6 when you started the trial. So when we first started coming to Nottingham, there was talk then about the trial being a possibility, and we were very fortunate in that Wyn was just 6 when we were able to get him a place on the trial. So he was really at the starting end of things in terms of his age. So yes, he's 8 now. Yes, he's 8 now.
Do you know what a trial is? Do you know what it means?
It's when you put the master sword back in the stone until the breath of the wild, I think.
No, not in the video game. What's this trial for?
Oh.
What are we doing?
I'm having a kangaroo.
Yes, but do you know why you're having the medicine?
No.
Right.
He does. I mean, we have discussed it.
I just said it.
I mean, our experience in terms of the care we've received during the trial has been absolutely consistently fantastic. Wyn's developed such an amazing rapport with all of the staff. We've been treated as a family with utmost care and sensitivity at all times. It's really been wonderful. They feel like an extended family to us now, and we actually have come to quite look forward to the visits, which is amazing considering the level of needle phobia that Wyn's experienced from the start. But he's gradually, with play therapy, he's got better and better, and the visits have become quicker and quicker for him because he's been able to because he's been able to cope with that in a very safe environment. So it's been really good for him, I think. We come up every month, so yeah, we haven't missed any. We've been fortunate enough to be able to continue coming throughout COVID. We come from Hastings, so it's a 4-hour journey either way. Ordinarily, we stay overnight in a hotel and then come the following morning. During COVID, we were unable to do that because there were no hotels, so we were doing it all in one day. I mean, it wasn't an easy decision for us to make because particularly when you're dealing with a young child, it's not a decision you're making for yourself, it's a decision you're making for somebody else. But I really do believe that if it is right for you and you can, you're in a mental place where you can cope with that, I think it's just fantastic. And can you sit down?
Why?
Because it's not safe to stand. I think it's just it's brilliant because, as we do say to Wyn, whether or not he hears it, he is paving the way for so many other children who may not, for whatever reason, be able to have the opportunity